Okay, I think we're I think we're good. I think it's running. I'm checking it out on YouTube. So let's start it. Let's start it off. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to Making Comics. Idea to script. Today I've got Michael Nunneley and Steve Sellers, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Talk about their current project and what they got coming up, and then we'll get right into what their inspirations were, how they got into it, how they met, how it's going, all those cool things. So if you get in and you're in the chat, feel free to ask questions whenever you want. And if you watch it on video on demand later, well, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate that as well. So uh, let's get started. So Michael, you want to start off?
Sure. Just for the record, my last name is actually Nunneley.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm
Just for the
sorry.
record, there. No big deal. No big deal. I'm the writer of Omen and Gallowsman, Dragon Girl, Albino a Warrior. I can talk to. Dark Oracles, and I'm also the creator and writer of the Satyr comic we got on Kickstarter right now.
Yeah, and I'm Steve Sellers. I'm the writer of such titles as White Druid and Michael Nero, Guardians of Elayim, which just came out last year, as we talk about this. And I'm also the writer and co-creator of Blitz, also for Revelation. So, yeah, we got a lot of irons in the fire.
Don't forget Dark Oracles. You have a hand
Yes.
in that one too.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that one's coming later this year.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys got a lot of stuff going on there, and that's great. So right now, let's see. Let me pop this up for everybody. Check out. Okay, this is currently the cover of Guardians of Elayim. I'm sorry.
Elayim, yes.
Elayim. I am so
Many
bad.
people struggle with the pronunciation. It's
Well,
okay.
I'm really bad about it. Okay, I'm always going to get in trouble for mispronouncing. So
It's all right. It's a weird word.
Yeah. I didn't know myself at first.
So I'll leave this up while we just get to know you guys. So you want to share with, like, how did you get into writing comics? Did you write other things to begin with? Like, did you write novels? Did you write screenplays, or did you just something you've always wanted to do is just write graphic novels? And how did that all start for you guys?
Well, I guess for me, I guess that involves two different points. I actually wrote my first comic book when I was 12 years old. I did it on typewriter paper, and really it was more like an illustrated book than a comic. The very first time I tried it, but I did know that I wanted to be a comic book writer. I wanted to make comics at that point. And then later on, I got into reviewing comics with the Chico Comics page, and I got hired on to make a universe of characters, and well, I guess I just kind of jumped on. I had a bunch of characters I'd been working on since I was 12. Some of them I'm still using today, and it just kind of became an obsession of mine. I started with Omen #1, was the first full comic I ever actually wrote, and it just kind of built on from there. That's kind of how I got into it. I guess my major inspirations are going to be mythology, Tolkien, and horror.
I pretty much go all over the place. I always wanted to kind of get into comics, like since I was about 12 or so. I didn't really think to actually start writing, like proper writing, until I was about 14. And then I was kind of inspired, honestly, by fantasy novels. I was really inspired by the Dragonlance Chronicles by Weiss and Hickman when I first read those. And that kind of got me thinking, okay, maybe I can try something like in the vein of that. And that kind of led into some other ideas. I had lots of science fiction ideas, a lot of comic book ideas that I had developed, and then kind of worked on and off into those. And then At what point, and I want to say it was about 15 years ago or so, when I started getting into fan fiction, and I basically used that to kind of like refine craft, learn, what I was doing a little bit better. And then finally got to the point where I'm saying, okay, I'd like to create, my own universe with my own ideas and, start things from scratch. And that's where the Blitz comic came from. And then later on, I met up with Mike, and that's really what allowed me to get into comic scripting, properly for the first time. And that's was White Druid and Michael Nero #1. So from there, pretty much everything's been kind of flowing out from that stuff that I did.
I'd like to point out the White Druid and Michael Nero #1 made #9 on the list of what was it? What was the exact phrasing there? It was best dramas of 2021, I believe it was.
Yeah, by Global Comics. I was stunned by that. I really enjoyed writing it, and I think that I think we all did a really good job on that. But I wasn't expecting it to be particularly like honored for anything, so I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like this is really not new stuff for you. You guys have been doing it for a little bit now. Then, and I imagine that helps while the comic industry moves into this new era of a lot of independent publishing, being able to crowd fund your ideas. I've always thought that ever since crowdfunding started in the comic book industry, that it was a really good metric or measuring tool for whether or not you think a story is gonna float. It's kind of like a pre-order, right? That's pretty much what crowdfunding is. It's you're pre-ordering a book based on either someone's past work or what they see visually at the time, right? During a Kickstarter or during promotions of a Kickstarter or anything like that. So, in your eyes, do you guys think it's becoming easier now for independent creators to get out there, get their ideas out there, get their ideas published? I mean, how do you think of it? What do you think about all this crowdfunding?
Well, I gotta say, one of the biggest deterrents I keep running into as far as people that are willing to back crowdfunding campaigns is and I was unaware of this until recently. Apparently, there has been a lot of just I mean, just bad, not just bad campaigns going on where people promised a bunch of stuff and just did not deliver. They said we're going to do this and this, and none of it ever happened. And so you got a ton of people out there that have just been burned by crowdfunding, and they're reluctant to get back into it again. So we're having to come up with new ideas and stuff as to how do we get them to have more faith in what we're doing.
Yeah.
One of the ways that we do that is we have what's called a digital guarantee, which means that even if the campaign itself is unsuccessful, anybody who backs the campaign still gets a digital copy of the comic.
All right.
But as far as publishing goes, there's so many digital platforms out there nowadays that I mean it's pretty easy to get stuff out there. If you can make a PDF of your comic, you can publish it.
Right.
Yeah, I have to say that I really love, just how many options there are to publish anything you want, and not just comics, but also novels or anything else. Because you have Amazon, you have Comixology, you have Global Comics, you have all these platforms, you have web comics, even there are so many different ways because of the internet in order to put your stuff out there, and you don't have to worry about gatekeepers. You don't have to worry about big publishers liking or not liking anything that you're doing. You don't have to worry necessarily about agents. You don't necessarily have to worry about, what these people are going to say about your content or anything like that. You can just get it out there, get your vision the way that you want to, and then let it just live or die on, what the audience wants. And I think that that's been a good approach for us. So far, it seems to have worked for us.
Right. Well, Mike, is it Mike or Michael? Which one do you like to go by?
That guy works. It doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. You make a good point. I want to get to that real quick. I just want to welcome Tank Ferret into the chat. Thanks, man, for coming in and checking it out. Hey, like it if you want to. You bring up a good point about with crowdfunding and the ability to fulfill, right? Especially if you've raised the money to do it. This is one of the fears I had when it first started. I ran a crowdfunder back in the latter part of 2019, I believe it was. And I didn't reach my goal, and I had a fixed goal. Like Indiegogo allows you to do a fixed goal or a flexible goal, right? So
Right.
even if you don't make the goal, you still get the money. I didn't really want to do that because I wanted to show people that I was committed to getting the project done. And if I didn't get that money, then sorry about that. If I didn't get the money, then I wouldn't be able to do it, right?
Right.
Sorry about that. I had a little accident there by the door. But a lot of people go into crowdfunding and they only have like 4 pages, right? They might showcase 4 pages, but that's the only pages they have done, right?
Right.
And even if they raise the money, it's still going to be a while because regardless of what people think, creating a comic takes a lot of time. The illustration of the pages, depending on how fast your artist is, takes a while. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be done overnight. So I think it's a good point. It holds true. It even held true back in the 80s when I self-published, printed books and the small press era, was that if I said the book was going to be out in, let's just take a month in May. And if I didn't ship that book in May to the distributors, the next time that they placed orders with me, it would be substantially less. Like they would cut the numbers almost in half just because you were late last time. We don't even know if we're going to get the book. So we're not going to commit to it. And so I think that's an important thing to remember while everybody's doing these crowdfunders is, be prepared. Like before you set it up, make sure that you're ready to go. And then it's not going to be a couple years or whatever before you fulfill. So that's a good point you make there.
And I will also add that, I was going to say that we're blessed with a ridiculously quick and productive artist. So I'm hoping that nothing like that will happen with us, but we will see.
Oh, that's good though. That's good to have. Yeah.
You add to that. We're planning on launching the Seder Kickstarter around like the end of February, maybe early March, something like that. Mm-hmm. And our artist is already working on it. By the time our Kickstarter campaign is over, the comic will be done. That's why we can do that digital guarantee.
No, that's a good policy to have and a good way to set it up, I think. In my opinion, of course, there are people that are going to make money regardless of how late the book is. I mean, there are. They're either really famous or, they've got a huge following or they were in the comic book industry beforehand. People are always going to take that chance, or some people will always take that chance and, contribute to the campaign, even though they know it's going to be 18 months before they see a book. But as a smaller independent person where, your name is not as big or people don't know who you are, that's one of the key things I feel that you really have to do is if you make a commitment and you say it's going to be out, then it better be out because it's going to be hard to trust you later. And it also hurts other independents who are trying to do it later as well. Just like you said, if I backed a book and I spent $25-$30 on the campaign and I haven't seen the book in 2 years, why in the world would I take a chance on another guy that
exactly,
you know what I mean? So I think you guys are doing it the right way. The current project I'm working on with Corey, the Oni book, that's exactly what he's doing. He's just making sure he gets all the pages. Like I have to get, I've got I think I have like 15 more pages to draw, and the book will be complete as far as art goes. And then, of course, he has coloring and lettering to go, but he's not doing his campaign until it's completed. So I think that's a good way to go. So,
really, I think as an independent creator, especially like as you said, if you're not really known or established, if you want people to put themselves out there and back your campaign, you got to put yourself out there too. And I think that's what we're trying to do here.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, it sounds like you guys are doing it the right way, and you have you got that digital guarantee going on. So I think that should establish a little bit of trust with people who may not know about you or your work or stuff. So, how do you want to share about what motivates you in your writings? Go into a little bit more detail about that. Like, I think you mentioned stuff about mythology you like and fantasy novels and things like that. Are those your major inspirations, or do you like take as far as comic writing goes? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is are there specific comic books that really inspired you to write? And if so, do you still have? Are there newer books that come out now that actually get your creative juices flowing? When you're writing books.
You want to take that one first, Steve?
Yeah, I would say my major influences in terms of comics. I think there's no question that Chris Claremont is a huge, huge influence on me, especially on Blitz. And it really is because I was reading New Mutants and Uncanny X-Men really, really early, and it was just one of those long runs that really kind of stuck with me. So like long form character development and things like that are things that are in there. I would say definitely like some of the content here and there in terms of that as well. But I also take a lot of inspiration from other things, not just that. I would say in terms of other genres, yeah, fantasy novels as well. Tolkien, we've definitely discussed. Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman kind of got me started, but I really got more into later on things like Roger Zelazny, Michael Moorcock, all those kinds of things. There was a little bit of those sort of elements in Guardians and in some of my other work. Sometimes I take stuff from video games occasionally. Like I'll see something in a video game that I think is like a really neat idea, and maybe kind of play with that a little bit.
Right.
So I look in all kinds of genres, and I would say definitely like classic literature things like Sherlock Holmes. We've done the Iliad, I believe, yeah, because that's coming up in Guardians. Arthurian lore, Three Musketeers, all these other different things that have kind of like sunk in my head over the years have found their way in. But in terms of like other comic book influences, in terms of things that are recent, Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk is definitely one. Chip Zdarsky's work on Daredevil, I would say, is another one. And then in terms of DC, like Jeremy Adams on Flash, Tom Taylor on Nightwing, Robert Venditti's Superman books, both Superman 78 and Man of Tomorrow on the digital series. Those are like I would say the main recent influences. But really, a lot of my main influences, I would say, are like 80s creators. Claremont, Miller, Walt Simonson, Jim Starlin, people like that.
Yeah, would you say that was like that is the heyday of comics for yourself? I mean, I don't know how old you are. I'm 56 years old, so the heyday for me was in the 70s and the early 80s. So, but would you say that's
I'm an 80s kid. I will say
Are
that.
you an 80s kid?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but I do appreciate a lot of the 70s stuff. I've actually been going back and reading some of the 70s stuff more recently. So I've been kind of getting a feel for that. I love the stuff that Steve Gerber did on the Defenders and Man Thing and on Tales of the Zombie, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that I definitely get some influence from that. But I wouldn't say that I would be necessarily. That's the kind of stuff I like reading, and to a certain extent, is some of the stuff that I like writing. But I also kind of recognize that you kind of have to alter your approach, to deal with a modern audience, because not everybody's going to like what you like, and there are definitely things where you kind of have to adjust for the times and being able to evolve. And so, I do a little bit of that as well.
Right. Yeah, my take on those, especially in the '70s, my tastes were a little bit more eclectic. I was more into the small press stuff. That's one of the reasons why I decided to publish my own book. But things like Cerebus, Ranzarok, the French comic, the Hernandez brothers with Love and Rockets. Just things like that. James O'Barr, The Crow.
Yes, I've actually met him. Wonderful guy.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I never met him, but I enjoyed that story. So it was good stuff. But what about you, Michael? What do you have any current favorites? Anything that?
Well, unfortunately, I'm a bit behind as far as current comic reading goes,
Mhm.
but I'd say as far as comic writers that have influenced me, I'm gonna say probably Scott Snyder, Jeff Johns, and Garth Ennis would be my major influences as far as writing goes in comics. But I mean, before that, I mean, one of my biggest inspirations, thing that really got me into wanting to tell stories at all was mythology. I got that from the 1981 Clash of the Titans movie.
Mhm.
I fell in love with mythology after that, and then I saw Jason and the Argonauts, and I was hooked.
You're right.
So I mean, mythology had a huge part of it. Also, my dad started me watching horror movies real early. I think I watched my first one when I was 8, 1984.
Okay.
It was a Nightmare on Elm Street, and so
Yep.
slashers and stuff like that have been a huge part of my influence. Um, but then you get into later when we're talking about not just character building but world building stuff.
Mhm.
My major influence has got to be J.R.R. Tolkien. Um, he that guy, I don't know how much you've read of what he's done, but he has these just, I mean, besides the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, there are like I want to say like 10 books of
Mhm.
just like histories and stuff of all the different cities and peoples and ages and it was so elaborate and so well built and so thought out. It impressed the crap out of me. And one day I wanted to do that myself
Do
as
that.
far as building a big giant universe. And I think I did that with the Omenverse.
Right.
Plus, at least a little part of me wants to be a kind of Stan Lee in that I
Mhm.
create a whole universe full of characters.
Right. Right.
right,
I think
right.
I think a lot of creative people are like that. They have so many ideas and it just popping out of their heads. They can't write it down fast enough, right? Get it out of your
Yeah.
head. But as far as Tolkien, yeah, I think a lot of people are influenced by Tolkien. The I think a lot of it. I don't want to say a lot, but I know that some of his work was later brought out by his son, I believe, something
Yes.
like
Yeah,
that.
Christopher Tolkien.
Yeah, Christopher. And then, but yeah, I've read the Silmarillion, which is it's a very dry read because it reads like a textbook. But but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. That was after the Lord of the Rings. And I have to be honest with you, like I've always heard of Tolkien, but I didn't really get into him until the movie, right? The
Mhm.
trilogy. The trilogy is like I want to read. Oh, okay, everybody says the books are really good, so I'm going to read it. So I read the trilogy, and I said, man, I really enjoyed that. So I picked up the Silmarillion and started reading that. And people told me, "Oh, you're not going to like that because it doesn't read really like a story. It's just like it's like a it's like a history book, right?" And so, but I enjoyed it. So that's cool that, but like I said, I think Tolkien has an influence on a lot of people and a lot of writers. I could be wrong. I'm sure there's people out there that hate him. I have a friend that doesn't really enjoy him, but he likes. Was it George? Is it Martin?
Game of
George R.
Thrones.
R. Martin.
George R. R. Martin. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Song of Ice and Fire, I guess is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he really likes that. So, but so that's good. So what you guys want to talk about? You want to talk about Guardians for a little bit? Let people know. I've got the book right here. I'm sharing the book. This front cover, written by Steve, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you want to talk a little bit about that and maybe where they can get it as well if they're looking to check it out.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about that, and if Mike has anything he wants to add, I'm sure he can do that.
Oh,
The
I'm going to give
basic
Mike his chance. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Basically, the idea that he had given me was the idea that essentially this is a group of 7 time travelers who have to basically set the universe right after essentially the death of a god, and all of this happens in the first issue, basically, which is set in Roman Jerusalem. So you basically get to see like all the 7 characters, how they come together, and they're actually adversarial at first. Most of it really comes around the actions of a Roman character named Marius Decimus Longinus,
Mhm.
and basically he's working for the governor of Jerusalem, and he's being asked to do some really bad things. And so, unfortunately, he's somebody who's really driven in many ways. Shall we say, by moral blindness. He's somebody who believes in Rome a little bit too much, and it really causes him to sort of lose sight of what he should be fighting for. And that really
I
kind of sets into motion
I like
what
how
happens
you
in the Death of
described
God.
him before as Captain Rome.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of that was my concept for him, was that basically he would be Captain Rome, just to the point where keeping in mind that Roman values are not the same as our values. So one of the things that I really wanted to stress was the idea of loyalty, loyalty to the state, loyalty to the emperor, loyalty to the Roman household gods, all of those things, and then ultimately how that would lead him astray and how that comes into conflict. Essentially with all the other characters in the book. So by the end of it, they end up coming together, but it ends up being after a lot of conflict first and a lot of really horrible stuff that happens.
Right. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody that wants to check it out, but I did think you had a very interesting take on that. How can I say it without spoiling it? That period of time in the Roman Empire when something uh, when something happens, but it's 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 told in a little different way.
Mm.
Um, I don't know if you guys know what I'm getting at. I just don't want to spoil it for
Yeah, like
people. But
Kind of.
it's kind of it's a different spin on a well-known story.
Yeah.
yes, very good. That's why you're the writer and I'm an artist, right?
Yeah, I wanted to show it from a very different perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I found that interesting and well done. So kudos for that. So, but
Thank you.
Mike, you had something to do with this book as well, right? If I understand correctly.
Yes,
Mhm.
and I don't mind getting a little bit specific with this because I kind of have to with like how I got inspired with the whole thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Um, the God in question is in that dies in this story is Christ. Um, Now my inspiration for this
You just
came
said it.
from I if you in the Bible it talks about when Christ died that the sun actually goes black as night. That there was this huge earthquake, right? Buildings got destroyed and everything. It even says that the dead themselves were seen risen out of the grave and walking around Jerusalem.
Right.
So, right, okay. So I'm thinking all this is going on just because he dies. Uh, what do you say? What what if something else even greater happened at that moment? What if the death of a god actually created a tear in space time itself? I like that. It talks about there being the storm and the thunder and all
Hmm.
of that and everything. What if that was the space time itself cracking and splintering?
Hmm.
And what kind of team would you take to assemble to fix something like that? And really, that was the basis of what I came up with for the Guardians.
Yeah, so he just kind of gave me the concept, and he said, okay, it needs to be 7 characters, from this time period, and just have fun with it. And so from there, I kind of realized that the Centurion had to be the main character because he was the one at the center of things. He's the
Right.
one who pierced the side of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, he had to be at the center of that. And then from there, I just basically said, okay, what other characters would be around? Because we wanted to have characters that reflected different walks of life. I wanted people that were, native to Jerusalem. I wanted people that were maybe Greek, characters that, were from North Africa, all this sort of places and times connecting in this one area. And one particular idea that I really like was the idea that one of the granddaughters of one of the Magi is involved as well. So I wanted to have a character who was from what was then called Parthia, but I believe it's now modern day Iran. So I developed this character called Nazrin, who I really ended up loving, and so all of that came up together. And so I hope that looking at this, you're kind of seeing a very diverse, very eclectic group, but one that kind of makes sense for the story that we're telling.
Right. No, I think you pulled that one off. It's based on what I've read. So, now, do you have this? Was this book crowdfunded, or was this just like, I don't know, properly published?
We attempted to crowdfund it,
Mm-hmm.
but the campaign was unsuccessful.
Okay.
We've actually had a few unsuccessful campaigns so far.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think we're getting a little bit better at it.
Mm-hmm.
We're understanding how things work a little bit more, and I mean, I think we're definitely evolving. It also helps that last year we got picked up by Wicked Publishing,
Right.
and they're doing all our fulfillment now, and they're publishing our books for us. We're also publishing them like on Kindle and Global Comics and stuff, but Wicked's publishing our printed books and everything. That's certainly helped out a lot.
No, yeah, that's awesome. How did you guys get involved with Wicked? Like, did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? How'd that work?
I reached out to them. I reached out to them, but it was initially because they just showed interest in us, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We got to know them on Twitter initially. It was just about whenever we would post something about one of our comics, or we were talking about just one of our digital sales, or whatever was going on. They would usually like it and share it, which helped get the word out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I figured, hey, we got a publisher here. Why don't we try to reach out to them, see if maybe we can? Because making comics is expensive. It is not a cheap thing to do. And so as the guy who founded all of this, I needed some financial help with the whole thing, as far as getting things published and printed and all of that kind of stuff. And Wicked was willing to take on to that. So I reached out to them. I sent them my comics. They checked them out. We had a series of video calls, like on Skype and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I signed a contract with them for all 6 of our titles.
Nice. All right. Well, that's good. But you did say that you had some crowdfunders before, didn't quite work out. Now, I think you mentioned you're going back to crowdfunding for the next book, right?
Yes, Seder #1.
Yeah, let me pull that up real quick.
It's my background.
Yeah, your background. I think I actually have there we go. Is that coming across? Zoom in a little bit on that. Let me see if
it could be zoomed in a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of white space.
There we go. How about that?
There we go.
Does that work?
Yeah,
okay. So this is the Kickstarter page, right? For Seder,
it's in the pre-launch stage right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna go ahead. I hope this doesn't take me off the. I'll click this button after we're done streaming, because I don't want it to take me off of here or spew forth any of my private information. So,
All right, all
but
right.
I will click on it. But
Thanks,
so
man.
so you guys want to talk about this upcoming project?
Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned before, I'm a big horror fan.
Right.
Um, there are actually elements of horror in most of my books, from Omen Comics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Seder number one is my first attempt at just a straight up horror comic, and I mean it's grim, dark Viking horror. It's got love, it's got magic, it's got Norse mythology, it's got some brutal warfare in it. I mean it's got everything I would want in a Viking horror story. I'm pretty proud of this one. I think it turned out really well. And if you look at that art there, I think Tosin's really going to do a great job on this one.
All right. Right.
Uh,
Yeah. I'm
yeah,
not directly involved with it, but I have read the script, and it is really, really great. I can't wait to see what Tosin does with it.
Sounds all good to me. Let's see. It sounds like everything I like. Vikings, lots of gruesome combat, some Norse mythology, and some horror. So yeah, sounds like it ticks off a lot of boxes.
Yeah, our tagline is "Hell hath no fury like a vulva scorned."
Yeah, I will take some credit for that because I kind of felt like that line from the Bard pretty much sums up everything that this is about. Because in the end, what's going on here is that you have a king who is break a vow to a vulva witch, and the consequences that ensue from that. And so I feel like everything is about that relationship at its core, and how everything goes wrong from there.
Right. 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 Well, yeah. I mean, do you have? Is there any? Do you have any more preview artwork or?
No, actually, the Tosin Awosika, our artist,
Mhm.
just started drawing Seder number one today.
Oh, okay. 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 So this is
As
just
soon as soon as he gives us the inks, I'm going to put some of those pages up. As soon as I get the colors in, I'm going to put some of those up. Then it's off to our letterer Guido Martinez, and I'm going to share some of those pages as they come up too. We're going to get constant updates on this thing.
sounds good. Well, that anybody interested in Viking, Norse mythology, horror, uh, go ahead and jump on
Historical
that train
warfare,
now.
there's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
there is a little bit of alt history there.
Mhm.
The when the European world really first came in contact with Vikings, this wasn't the very first attack, but the most well known was in 793 AD. The Vikings came and attacked the monastery at Lindisfarne.
Mhm.
Uh, that that ended up being a really brutal, bloody thing. And the word of that spread across Europe. Well, what I wanted to do was I wanted to take that story and just spin it on its head. Basically, the only thing still about that story left in there is, yeah, eventually in the series, the Vikings are going to show up at Lindisfarne, but it's for a totally different reason, and totally different things are going on. So it's got some alt history in there too.
I got you. So what? Just for my curiosity, does it take place around that time, the 8th century, or before, or?
Yeah, it takes place in 792 and 793 AD.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right.
So 8th century.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, yeah. Sounds good. Like I said, I'll click that button and get notification of it when it launches. And of course, anybody else interested, make sure you follow Michael and Steve on
Mhm.
Twitter. Um, Especially if you're interested in this or in the Guardians. Is there you have plans for like you have Guardians 2, right? Is that
Oh yeah,
already?
definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's basically the start of the story that takes place during the time of the Iliad.
Okay. All right. Right. And are you just going straight to publishing from there? Or are you trying to do crowdfunding on that one as well? Or
we're going to try and do crowdfunding on all of our books.
Oh, okay. I didn't know, like, if you were just going to totally skip that part and just, go with the publisher and but yeah,
No,
crowdfunding is
man,
always.
it can cost a couple $1,000s just to do the art on a book, and that that that's just a lot of money to
No, you're right.
keep coming up with all the time on my own. I've spent the last few years dumping every dime I've got into making comics, and crowdfunding is really the only way I can keep this going.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Got to get people paid.
No, absolutely. It's not. I think sometimes people get the wrong idea and think, it's pretty easy. You just draw it and write it, or you write it and draw it, and get some people to commit to it, and then you print it and ship it out. And I don't, it's not that easy. It's not that.
There's a lot of behind the hood stuff that most people don't see.
No, that's true.
And I really think there's a lack of appreciation for all the amounts of people involved too. Between the artists and the letterer, the graphic designer, the writers, the editor, a whole bunch of people are taking part in the book, and all those people need a piece of the pie.
Yep. And especially the process of doing a comic, right? You guys are writers, right? So you'll bang out, you have a basic plot, then you'll bang out. That's something I wanted to get into with you guys, because in past episodes of making comics, I've talked to writers about what their process is, right? Because there's different ways to write a comic script, and it really all depends on who you're working with, how the artist likes to or can jive with, the process of which you work. I've worked with writers that map out everything, right? Every panel, every story. Well, of course they're going to do story beats, but I mean, every panel, every piece of pacing, exactly what they want in each panel. And then I've worked with writers that just say, okay, this is what I want to happen on this page. Go, show me what you can do, like art wise, just map it out. So, I would be interested to hear, like, what your two processes, what your process is. What do you work specifically with the artist? Is it more of a collaboration, or is it more, this is my story, can you draw this type of thing?
Well, one thing I think that is a little bit different with us than with a lot of creators is that our artist lives in Nigeria, and so we can't just call them up on the phone. I mean, at least I can't afford to call to Nigeria. I don't know about you.
Right. I got you.
But so when we write out a script, it's got to be written out in actually a lot of detail. We got to say exactly what we want in the script, and we got to describe it in a way that he can understand it. That somebody who doesn't have any idea what's going on with the story, because we really only talk a little bit through social media, but Tosin has this phenomenal ability to take what we have, no matter how detailed, no matter how well thought out we think it is, he can improve it, and he just keeps doing it every time. But we have to write out the very detailed panel descriptions and for the letter and everything, because even our letterer lives in Argentina. You know what I mean? Like, so people got to be able to pick up the script without having talked to a whole bunch of people and just know what's going on. So that's one thing that really, I think, makes writing our scripts a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah, and I would say, in addition to that, a lot of what I do usually involves like giving him a lot of references, and I can't assume that he necessarily understands what I mean, being in an American cultural context when he lives in Nigeria. So I have to kind of make sure that he knows exactly what I mean. So I have to be pretty clear, in descriptions about that. But more than that, I'm also describing things that happened like hundreds or thousands of years ago in another country. So, and so that means I have to provide descriptions of those things. I have to provide descriptions of like what the weapons look like, what the, the city look like, what these places look like. And that means a lot of times that I have to give him like photo references and things like that. And I will oftentimes provide links to pictures and things like that, so he can kind of get a visual idea of what I'm aiming for. And a lot of times, what we get back is often as good or better as what I give him. So I really appreciate all the work that he does for us.
Well, no, that's good. I mean, is there any other obstacles besides, like the cultural context you spoke about? Is there language language issue or no?
No. He
No,
understands the word.
Tosin speaks very good English.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, he does.
Okay. That's not. In fact, actually, if anything, I'm learning a little Nigerian pidgin.
Oh, there you go.
Right.
Yeah, he works very
Win-win,
closely with him.
Okay, well, great. It's like I said, win-win then. So how did you find your artist? Did you just go advertise for one, or did you notice his art from somewhere else and approach him? How did that all work?
No. I used to run an online comic book magazine, and this is actually where I met Steve too. Was called Chico Comics Page.
Okay.
And we did this thing called an artist spotlight, where we would call in different indie creators and stuff, and we'd interview them for the magazine. And that's actually where I met Tosin. I interviewed him, and when it came around time for me wanting to make comics after going through a couple of just nightmare people to work with, I approached Tosin about doing it, and we've stuck with him ever since.
Nice. Does he have a social media presence at all, or no?
Yeah, he's on Twitter at it's at AWOTOSIN Awotosin.
Yeah.
Awotosin. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to toss that into the private chat here, I'll put it in the description of the video after I post it. So
yeah, sure.
If you want to do that, sure.
Yeah.
And I'll add.
And he's also active on Facebook. He sometimes posts pictures there.
Okay. Good. So,
But I want to talk a little bit also about meeting Steve on there. And that,
sure.
Since we brought that up a little bit.
No, go right ahead. Yeah, this is your show.
Steve was one of my reviewers for Chico Comics Page.
All right.
And when I honestly, I tried to the White Druid of Michael Nero title. I had a great idea for some characters, and I had a really good story mapped out. But no matter how many times I tried to write it, it just didn't feel right. I couldn't quite get the tone I was looking for and the feel of the characters that I wanted. And I approached Steve about doing that. I originally just kind of got a hold of him on I think it was Twitter, and just said, hey, I got this title I'm writing. I got these characters. I want to know if you'd be interested in writing this title. And, he said, sure. And then I rained a flood of notes down upon him. You want to talk about that, Steve?
Oh, yeah. That's the one thing about working with Mike. He always has tons and tons and tons of notes, but it's just so much of it that you have to kind of decide, okay, how much do I actually need in order to write the story?
Right.
So, but once I I think they all came together once I figured out who Michael Nero was. I think once I figured that out, and once I kind of realized, okay, yeah, this is basically, a mystical Sherlock Holmes that has, this third sight that, allows him to see everything in all these different realities and spirits and ghosts and all these things, and that it drives him slowly, gradually nuts. I kind of then at that point like, okay, that's who Michael Nero is. I know what the story is now. I knew where Mike wanted to tell the story and where I wanted to go to. In between all of those things, I get to play around with all of these different characters that I really have learned to enjoy. I had to learn Irish mythology too. That was another aspect because I was not as much into Irish mythology starting out, and then I had to learn it pretty quickly. But I learned a lot of really interesting things, and I feel like I understand it a lot more. And now I get to see, there's a lot of really fun stuff, in these legends that I hadn't read before. So, I think it turned out pretty well.
Yep.
As far as our notes, you asked about that. We actually have really detailed notes. As far as, I mean, our next 50 comics are pretty detailed as far as what's going to be in them, what's going to happen. We got a large story going on in this first phase called Tetrad Omega. And other than that, we just use the bullet points like you were talking about before.
Right. Don't they call that a story Bible or something like that?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good. Like, I can relate because my project was called The Wreck, and it's just the sci-fi story. But I have like a huge. I have them over here. I have like 4 of those composition notebooks, just full of notes about the world in which it takes place in, right? The future setting and stuff. You know, the space station on Luna and other things, and like, so I can totally relate to all that, and that's part of the world building, though, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got a science fiction series that I've been writing off and on that I do a lot of the same stuff with. So yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah. I actually find a lot of inspiration for mine through tabletop games, of all things, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's
I
ironic.
actually
Why don't you
Blitz came a little bit about that. Yeah.
That's what I was just going to say. That's ironic, Steve. Why don't you tell them about Blitz?
Yeah. Blitz is my superhero series, and it started as a play-by-post game that I played like around, I want to say 16 years ago, somewhere around there. Yeah, it was probably longer than that. I want to say 18 years actually. So that's quite a while ago. So, but it was a play-by-post game that that I played with these people that I was friends with online for a while, and it eventually fell through. And I just kind of realized, well, okay, I have these characters. I had Night Spider, who is a gentleman thief, who basically suffers from a magic curse that kind of forces him to do good.
right.
And I really knew I had a lot of stuff that I wanted to tell about this character. I had a reporter character, but that she didn't end up being the main focus in terms of Blitz. The main character is actually the reporter's kid sister, Amy Mason. And basically she was a walk-on character. I just like, okay, I knew I needed somebody that was kind of in the background that could kind of bounce off of my character. And Amy just kind of like stepped off the page and said, "Write me." Basically, that's how it goes sometimes. Some characters you just so resonate so strongly with you that they just jump off the page, come alive, and you have more to say about them.
Right.
And that's with Amy. And so I'm like, okay, I'll make her into a main character. I gave her super speed as a concept. And the idea really is that she's somebody who is so idealistic and so reckless that she runs into situations not knowing what she's doing. And then she has to, because she's very good at improvising, figure ways out of things. And so she's basically kind of like very much a whirlwind of motion all the time. Very reckless. And Night Spider is sort of the character who kind of balances her out because he is very pragmatic. He is not at all idealistic like she is. He's doing what he has to do. He's trying to redeem himself, so he's trying to get rid of this guilt that he feels. But he's also somebody who is a lot more experienced, who has seen a lot of the worst things. So I like the idea of these two characters basically being the focus, of a story. Just focusing on the dynamic between the two of them. And I built the Blitzverse around those two. Just with the ideas that I had, with some other characters here and there, that I had built over the years. I had some characters that were kind of left over, from long before I created Blitz. Like in my very early years of, creating characters, and I just kind of threw those in. And building other ideas that I'd had for a while, over the years, and then until it finally became like a living, complete city for them to operate in, complete with villains and everything else. And it's going to take some time, I think, to get to that whole story. But I would say that that's my passion project.
Oh, is it right? It's something you always go back to every once in a while, just to,
yeah.
Well, I think we're in good company with the whole tabletop gaming or the RPGs or the video game. I mean, the Expanse, right? Leviathan Awakes and all that. Those guys, that's what they They were writing. They were trying to write either a video game or an RPG, one or the other. You know, they were trying to come up with a system for that, and I believe that's how that whole series of books came about as well. So,
wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, I can't remember their names. I know their pen name was it. Anybody remember that? I don't remember. It's not important. They go by it's two writers, and they go by a pen name for one writer for the whole series. So, but yeah, that's what they based their stuff off of as well. So,
I'm not sure.
yeah. But so what's your? Do you have? I don't want to take up too much more time. We've been going at this for an hour, but do you have any kind of advice for new writers that probably haven't gotten into this indie space yet or looking to do it? How to deal with artists, maybe, or just writing in general. You know, getting the things out of your head and on paper and things of that nature.
Sure. Well, I guess as far as getting other people to work with, I say a major thing might be actually getting contracts of some sort, getting some sort of agreement out front where everybody knows in writing exactly what's going on. That seems to help out a lot.
Well,
I don't think.
I think
Go
you
ahead.
mentioned. I was going to say. I think you mentioned earlier that you had some. Maybe you had some issues with finding an artist at some point. Maybe you had some dealings that weren't quite didn't quite pan out. Is that right?
Oh man, I had this guy. I when I very first started making comics, I could really only afford to have one page done a month.
Mm-hmm.
And so I paid this guy to do a couple of pages, and then the fire happened in Paradise back in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in that. So
Oh wow.
I was homeless for about a month,
Oh,
and
that's lucky.
this guy decided that because I was homeless, he didn't have to do the work that I hired him to do anymore, and he was just going to keep the money.
Wow.
There's situations like that. There was stuff where we both agreed to put in a certain amount of creative work into the thing, and when it actually came down to do it, there was this reticence about the whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
It was just Tosin Awasika is a paradise compared to the pool of crap I went through before I finally got to him.
Yeah, so he's really been amazing on every level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say anything more good about him. He's just been so great. But I will say, as far as things to recommend, the trick I really find for recommending, like, writing paths is that everybody's got their own path.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got to have their own strengths that they have to work on, and their own ways of getting in the industry. And so I would say, find out what you're good at. Just try a lot of different things. Find out what you're good at. What do you really know how to write? What do you feel like your passion's really coming out? Where do you feel like your strengths and weaknesses are technically? And then, just try to focus on, okay, this is what I know how to do well. Kind of focus on those things. Try to shore up those areas where you feel like you're weak at. Study from everybody, learn from everything, and try everything, and then see what works or does not work for you. Because some things that you're going to pick up, you're going to say, "Yep, I'm going to stick. This is going to stick with me my whole career." And then other things you're going to say, "This doesn't work for me at all." Why is this person doing it? So I would just say, just look for what tricks work for you. Use those. Just constantly develop, constantly think, constantly get influences. A lot of writers talk about like reading all the time. I think that that's good, but I think that's a little limited. I think that you can get good influences from everywhere, whether that's watching TV shows or playing video games or playing RPGs or any other form of media that really interests you. You can get all of those things, and you can find ideas, and you can put that into your work. You just have to know where to look for them, and you can also just in your daily life look for things that can turn into stories. Even if it's something that you saw on TV, or just some conversation or that happen to overhear, going out in the world. All of these kinds, because if you look at somebody like Neil Gaiman, he just wrote a novel just based on going to the graveyard that he went to in London.
Right. Right.
So those are the kinds of things that you're looking for, but you're going to have to find your own path to doing that. You're going to have to find your own experiences to draw on. You're going to have to find what really grabs you as a writer, and what do you really have to say as a writer. What themes matter to you? What are the things that you really want to tell people through your work? So all of those things I would say, just try to find those things and then try to do it as well as you can, and try to weed out whatever weaknesses you have as much as you can.
Right. Right.
I think one thing I might add to that is a lot of people. I've heard a lot of writers talk about their doubts as far as their ability or what others are going to think, and what I do personally is I do my best to impress me.
Right.
When I'm impressed, then it's done.
A lot of writers worry about imposter syndrome, but I think comparison and traps like that are the worst thing you can do. Just think about your own path and how to move your own path forward. Don't worry about what other people are doing. I tend to tunnel vision myself, so I try not to worry about that. I try to worry about, is the script that I'm writing, the best that I can do right now? Can I make it that better? And try not to worry too much about what's going on in the ether.
Right. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I don't know, like with writers, I'm not sure if you get that instant feedback like you do as an artist, right? As an artist, sometimes I fall into the trap of, I'll do a piece, like I'll do something for myself and I'll post it looking for likes, right? Looking for feedback, positive feedback. And I have to teach myself yes, obviously you want to produce art that people enjoy and like, but if that's the only reason you're doing it, you're not going to be happy doing it, right? Because
Twitter is fickle.
yeah, and what the young people say today, not everyone's going to be a banger, right? So, and I don't know if that's the same type of feeling maybe writers get as well. Like you throw, because I don't know if, like, writers don't do that I know of. They don't do like what artists do, right? Artists draw something, throw it out there, hope that people like it. Writers, like, usually it takes time to write something, and then you have to put it into a vehicle that somebody likes, either like in prose, like a novel or a screenplay or a comic book script or whatever, and then eventually people will read it, right? So I don't know if that's the same type of feeling, but it did strike a chord when you said that you can't worry about everything out there in the ether, and just concentrate on what you enjoy doing and improving what you're doing. So
yeah, I always write the first drafts of myself, and then I worry about what Mike thinks, and I worry about what our editors think. And then after that, I start worrying about, okay, what do people after that outside think?
Right, how are people going to receive it, right?
I think that system of checks and balances works really well, though, between because me and Steve read each other's works. Our editor checks with us, keeps us in line, and everything. I think as a writer, you really got to have what they call beta readers. You got to have people that are willing to check out your script and give you an honest opinion. Mm-hmm. You do not want people that are just going to say, "Oh yeah, it was great when it sucked." Right. You need honest advice about that.
No, it's the same way.
Yeah, you do, but at the same time, you don't want to basically overthink yourself into paralysis, which is really why you wanted to write for yourself first, and then you start worrying gradually about what the rest of the world thinks, because then that's really when you start getting into the revision phase, and you start thinking, okay, this may not have been such a great idea. I can go and tweak this, and then refine it and shape it until it's what you need it to be, and that's what I'm hoping that we've been doing.
Right.
Also, I heard a quote from Walt Disney that has always stuck with me, and that is that you need to be unique to such an extent that if people want what you have, they got to come to you to get it.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good one. So
Yeah, so I mean, doing things your own way, doing things different than how everybody else does it is not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's exactly what you need to be doing.
no, absolutely not. I think it's I think it's a good way to practice your craft, or to get it out there, right? I was just bringing up the fact that as an artist, sometimes, and I've been doing this a long time. Um, Sometimes I fall into the trap of I'm trying to please everybody, and I'm worried about what everybody's going to think, and that's just not a reality. That's not going to happen. And I just,
Yeah,
I
you
was
can't
wondering
please
if
everybody.
writers, yeah, and I was just wondering if writers sometimes feel the same way, right? Oh my God, I hope everybody likes this, because if one person doesn't like it, that means I'm terrible, right? Type of thing. So,
The question is, do the right
Honestly, I'm
people like it?
right,
honestly, I'm satisfied. Like I said, I try to impress myself.
right,
Um, honestly, once I've done that, once I can look at this and I say, you know what, I'm proud of this. I think I did a good job here.
right,
Beyond that, I don't know. I guess that gives me a confidence in it. If I can impress myself, I feel like
yeah,
I've done my job as best I can.
right, right, right. Well, like I said, it's been a little over an hour. Appreciate you guys coming on. I'm gonna let you guys plug your stuff. Talk about the Kickstarter you got coming up, the current books you've got going on, where people can find them would be a good thing as well. And yeah, let's just go from there. Tell us what plans you got for the future as well. So
All right. We currently have Omen Comics currently has 7 books out. It's Omen #1 and #2, Gallowsman #1 and #2, White Druid and Michael Nero #1 and #2, and Guardians of Elayim #1. You can find Omen #1, Gallowsman #1, White Druid and Michael Nero #1, and Blitz #1 on the Wicked Publishing site. You can buy digital copies there for only $2.99, and you can even buy printed copies for only $5, which is dirt cheap considering a lot of our comics are around 40 pages. That's a really good deal. You can also find both Omen Comics and Revelation Comics on globalcomics.com. They're also on Amazon Kindle. You can check those out. All of our digital comics, except for our trade, are $2.99. Our Omenverse Volume 1 trade collects Omen #1 and #2, Gallowsman #1, and White Druid and Michael Nero #1. It's a 136-page trade. We offer that for $9.99. The rest of our books and stuff will be coming on to Wicked Publishing soon.
Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and mention our Revelation Comics titles. There's Blitz, which we've already talked about. That's also going to be on Wicked Publishing, both in print and digital. Beyond that, we have Insurrection Fox Operations, which is written by Michael, and mostly it's the brainchild of Towson. So I'm hoping you'll be interested in that. Those are on Comixology and Amazon and Global Comics at the moment. Hopefully soon we'll be coming to Wicked at some point. And then Seder, as we've discussed, and Dark Oracles is going to be coming out, I believe, after that. That's what I've got coming up, in addition to Blitz #2, which I'm hoping will be early next year.
okay,
All right. Yeah. There's the site right there.
yeah, I pull up the
Yeah.
Omenverse off of Wicked Publishing.
Yeah, and Blitz, which stands on its own.
Right.
Okay.
They didn't actually separate those all that well. All of Omen Comics take place in the same universe, whereas Revelation Comics are all usually standalone universes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Blitzverse is kind of going to be its own line. Blitz right now is just about the only thing out of that. Maybe at some point there will be other things. I definitely have ideas for other things, but it's not like an immediate priority. I'm focusing on Blitz by itself right now. And then Insurrection Fox Operations is pretty much by itself. And also Sad and Desperate, which is another book that will be coming out later in the year, I hope.
Okay.
And I would like to clarify. You said that I wrote Insurrection Fox Operations. It really what happens there is Tosin comes up with the story,
Yeah.
and he actually writes out a script. But typically his work, his scripts need some polishing and some reorganizing and stuff. And so while he writes it, I do the scripting. And
it's his idea. It's all tossing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mike just makes it look good.
Well, some people might consider that a collaboration.
It is.
It is a collaboration for sure, but I didn't come up with this stuff, and Tosin really brings
Sad and Insurrection are both Tosin's ideas.
Tosin really brings a unique flavor to Revelation Comics that I certainly couldn't bring on my own. I just don't want to take any glory for that. Really, I'm just a polisher for the most part.
I got you. Yeah, it's always good to give credit where credit's due, though, right?
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Well, again, Kickstarter Seder #1. Any time frame for that again? I'm sorry if I missed it the first time you told me.
That's Seder #1 should be going live on Kickstarter by the end of February or early March.
Okay. All right.
And like I said, it'll be drawn, colored, and lettered, and in a PDF. With by the time the campaign is over.
Nice.
So we're at done by the end of March at the latest.
Right. So people would just have to wait on the print, basically, is it?
Right. But again, all that fulfillment is being done by Wicked Publishing, and they've got a pretty long track record of that.
Right. I know they have. I think they do Jack Irons as well.
They do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
know.
Cody and I go way back.
Yeah. I've met Cody. I met Cody in 2018, not in person, but online.
Right.
And I've talked to him several times, and he's a good dude. And so the book is great. I've done some fan art for him as well. So good stuff. But again, I really enjoyed having you guys on, talking about how you go about coming up with your ideas and the writing process and all your projects. Man, you guys got a lot of projects. I'm impressed, actually.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
That's a lot of stuff. And I've read the first Guardians, and I'll check out the next one. And again, I'll get notified on Cedar as well. I'm very interested in that book to see what happens. But again, thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. If you ever need anything or whatever, hit me up on Twitter. I'm always out there. And is there anything else you want to say?
I appreciate you having us on, man. Thanks.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's very good to meet you guys. I don't think I've talked to you before this, so hopefully we'll continue that relationship, at least online. So, sure. And good luck to you guys, and thanks to everybody who either watched or will watch in the future. And always hit that like button and subscribe, and check back for more Making Comics later when we have new guests. So, take care, everybody.